We're here at the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. This year marks the 60th anniversary for the sit-in movement. In this very location, a lot of activism has been going on in Greensboro, North Carolina. Let's go inside to see how these things connect. Hello, my name is Carmesha Blackmon. I am a junior at Bennett College, and I am here at the International Civil Rights Center and Museum with Ms. Tonya Wiley. We are actually inside of one of the museum exhibits. So Ms. Wiley, what is your role here at the Civil Rights Museum?
I am one of the senior interpreters here at the museum.
And could you tell me what a senior interpreter does?
Well, the role of a senior interpreter is the one who has actually worked diligently to research and garner more information to kind of master the story. So a senior interpreter is one who's had the experience and the time invested in learning that story that we're able to share it with those who come here to our facility.
And how long have you been a senior interpreter?
I have been at this museum for 6 years. 6 years.
So what's the most meaningful part of this experience?
Well, for me, what's most meaningful is the fact that I know we have an impact on the people who come here. And it's evident, especially for a lot of young people who come. They may make multiple trips here with their schools, and a lot of them will remember us when they come. And, you know, I had you the last time, and I learned this. Or when we hear feedback from teachers who bring their students, and they can write back to us and say, you know what, I had this issue with this one student, but after a visit at your facility, man, we saw such a change. So it's meaningful to us to know that we are having a positive impact on the people who come here and that they find us meaningful as well.
I could definitely agree to that, because when I was in elementary school, I always took trips to the museum, and I can tell that this experience has very much impacted my peers in a positive way.
Very good. Well, I'm happy to know that, Carmesha, that gives us more encouragement to continue doing what we're doing.
I'm glad. So, how did you become aware of the protests that happened?
Well, I learned about it, social media.
Okay.
I picked up on it, I think it was Friday afternoon. There was a lot of chatter about people wanting to gather here in Greensboro, so about Friday afternoon.
When did you find out about people coming downtown to protest?
It would have been early in Saturday afternoon. I was actually in Burlington, but again, with social media, I learned that there was a follow-through with the plan that I heard about on Friday.
And what day did you actually witness, if you did, the protest?
Actually, it was later that evening when I returned home to Greensboro myself. I saw the protesters in the street. I went on home, but I felt compelled to come downtown myself.
So how did this unfold? What did you actually see when you got down here?
Actually, the streets were kind of quiet when I first got here. Apparently, the larger group had moved on down, I think closer to 40, but they were making their way back downtown. It's natural here in this city because this is a landmark. This is the place where, in my opinion, this is really where the civil rights movement got a refreshing start. The sit-in movement literally began right here. So this is a place and a point of pride for this city and for what it represents. So it's natural that people want to come and start here, gather here as a place, almost a place of sanctity. And I witnessed this whole group of people making their way down Elm Street, and it was, to me, it was a beautiful sight to see because I was most impressed that what I saw were young people. I saw young people about your age, a lot younger, some of them, but they were all together and they were all moving together, and it was a beautiful sight because it looked like just this mighty force of youth coming down the street. So I was very much encouraged by what I saw when they made their way back to our building. So it's indeed an encouraging sight to see.
Did you encounter any of the protesters while you were down here?
I did. While the group was, stationed in front of our building, there was a bit of ruckus that occurred, and just encountering some of the people, myself and some other co-workers here, we did ask them, so, why are you here? So that's when I really began to understand that there really was not a clear cohesion with the group that was there. So as this group begins to travel down the street, that's when I really began to see it unfolding.
So what did you see unfolding?
As the evening progressed, probably about 11:30, it was very clear that we had a set of young people who were very clear and why they were here and what they were seeking, but then there were some who, I don't know what their agenda was, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't a shared agenda, I'll put it that way. There was not a clear cohesion with this group. It began to just kind of fracture and fall apart.
And as you observe that, how does that go along with what you teach here at the museum?
Okay. Well, what we teach here at this museum are the lessons that the young people, the blueprint that really has been laid out so beautifully of protesting, the power and the process of protesting. Protesting is not just coming to the streets. There is a process, and that's what we teach here, that it takes strategy, that it takes discipline.
So what do you think, with your professional understanding, that will make a protest work?
What works, what is proven to work with protesting is that it takes strategy, it takes discipline, it takes planning. Okay, this is not something that just on a whim we go do, but it takes planning because you have to plan for the unknown. You have to know where you're going, first of all, and more importantly, you need to know who's with you. I think that would have benefited those young people who were out in the streets over the weekend, knowing who's with you, learning to police yourself. So that's where discipline comes in, and strategy, but also having an agenda. What do you want? You know, so I understand, you know, running on emotion, running to the streets, chanting, you know, we want equal rights, no more police brutality, Black Lives Matter, but we need an agenda. Okay, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to have a follow through. So.
And when you say blueprint, you talked about knowing how to police yourself. So could you kind of explain a little bit more how they should go upon doing that?
Absolutely. So knowing how to police yourselves, I call it self-governance, being in control of yourself, but also as a unit being in control of itself as well. So as I stated, you know, it was very clear that with the groups that were out on Saturday during the initial part of the protesting, that these young people, a lot of them were not together. They weren't part of the same group. And so when one group began to fracture off and go away from what they were planning to do, it was very clear, and that's when the trouble began. If we go back to the protests of the 60s, for example, what happened here, or even with the marches with Dr. King, they had self-policing. They understood who was with them. They had already been in the know. This is what is expected, your behavior, this is how you conduct yourself. So everyone was on the same page and was clear on what was expected, but they also knew that if you get out of line, you can't be a part of this, because we have a clear focus and a clear agenda, and the last thing we need is for our own behavior and conduct to get in the way of that.
Okay, and when you say strategy, how do you think they should go upon creating a strategy?
So with strategy, let's go back to the 1960 sit-in movement. This was not a decision on February 1st that 4 young men decided after school, let's just make them all walk to the Woolworth and sit down at an all-whites counter. It doesn't work that way. It's not that simple. It takes time. And it wasn't just a few days of planning. This was a lengthy process. In fact, it took months of planning, strategizing, understanding how to coordinate, how to train, because training, you have to be trained to know how to respond to certain scenarios. So this was not a quick event, it was a process. Absolutely, it was a process. There was a lot of people who participated in putting this all together. Young women from Bennett College were instrumental of planning this. The local NAACP, parents, educators were all taking part in this, because you had to know where you were going, what you might encounter. What do you do when you encounter this? And this is where we get the notion of nonviolent response, nonviolent protesting.
So how should we be thinking about outcomes in the present context?
In the present context, I think we need to be very clear that the outcome is not finite. Okay, we can't look to something it's tangible right now. That's not what we should be looking for, and that goes back to planning and strategy. We need to understand, and young people need to understand, that protesting and activism is a complex act. Okay, there's so many components that come together, and that's part of the strategy. What do you want? Okay, so say for example, they say, we don't want any more police brutality. Okay, fine. So if police brutality ends, something else replaces it.
Right.
So we need to look much more broader in what it is that we want. We need to be very clear and concise in what we want, in that it not only addresses this immediate need, but looking long term. It's often referred to that this is a long game, okay? Sad to say, we are still fighting the fight from 1960s, and I think that's what young people need to understand. The protests, and I'm sorry to interject this here, but I think I have to. I've heard comments and responses from some young people that, what happened in 1960, well, that was just so lame. It was too simple. It was too quiet. But what is perceived as quiet and simple, I call calculated and concise, okay? Their strategy there. They knew what they wanted. They didn't just want the bus system desegregated in Birmingham. They wanted transportation across the country to be desegregated, but that also led into policies across the board for other things. So we have to address an immediate need by casting the net much more broadly. Young people, don't just think police brutality. We need to be thinking policy, okay? Think across the board, not just police brutality, but let's think about training. What causes police brutality? What's in the mind of those policemen who commit this action?
So how do you think we can get young people to, have that broader type of thinking?
Okay. I honestly invite them here, which we do. We have lessons for you. If people have asked me, knowing that I work here, what do you think about how, the protests have gone? They've taken such a negative tenet in some places. And my response is, I don't condone it, but I understand. Once you become so frustrated, once you become so angry, because in my opinion, Black Americans have been in the prone position for far too long. The institution has had its knee on the neck of Black America far too long. So I understand when you feel that you're helpless and nothing's changed, you don't know what else to do, you act out. I get it. I can't tell you how mad to be, but I believe that here at this institution, we can tell you how to be mad, how to channel that into something that's constructive, something that is progressive and productive, okay? So instead of being in a state of destruction, we can show you how to take that same energy and make it constructive and progressive and productive.
10 years from now, looking back on this situation, what story would you want to be able to tell?
The story that I'd love to be able to tell from this institution's perspective is that once again, young people just like you, Carmesha, have harnessed the power of their youth, that they have built on the foundation that young people in 1950 and 1960 laid, and they built on that and took it to a new level, that they broadened the net, broadened the scope of their protest, and that they've created significant change in this country. And through their own actions, they have embodied the message that we promote here: nonviolent protesting, direct action. Young people, you guys are such big consumers in the world. You just don't even understand the power that you pack. You have the power to change. It's not about might, not by might, but it's through your endurance, it's through your fortitude that you can change the world. We have a gallery in this museum, it's called Changed World. And in that gallery, we have this beautiful mural there, that's myriad pictures of people who lent their hands and their minds to the protest. And I'd love to, 10 to 20 years from now, be able to go into that gallery and see pictures of your face and your peers on there as people who've changed the world, taken us to the next level, created policy change in this world that lays another foundation that young people that come behind you can build upon. 20 years from now, I want you to be anchoring on CNN and telling this story that I witnessed, where my generation picked up the mantle and continued the work and brought this world to another level of equality and change.
What specific things do you think that the Civil Rights Museum can do to be involved with the change?
Well, actually, Carmesha, we have already enacted a plan. We've participated and partnered with our local police, Guilford County, Forsyth County as well, bringing their cadets here with training, with civil rights training, learning more about our message here, and hoping that that will have an impact to promote more of a humane approach to policing. So that's something that we've already done here and hope to continue. But it is also our hope that we can connect with young people and those who are participating in activism today, that they can come here. We invite you to come here, join us, go through the experience here at the museum and learn the story, learn the foundation that's here. But also we hope to create training, leadership training opportunities here to teach you how to be constructive with your activism and protesting. This institution is not just a museum that holds historical information and artifacts, but we are a center of education. And it's not our mission to be activists ourselves, but we are a facility that can educate those who want to be leaders. We believe that civil rights leaders possess a distinctive set of characteristics and standards, and very much different than the standard of leadership that is more often taught. And it's our hope that we can help young people and those who wish to step into those shoes to learn those standards, to learn those qualities. We invite you to come here. We're here for you to help educate you on the lessons that are embedded in this facility, in this institution, to help you, to help bring up a new generation of leaders who can effectively create change in this country.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley, for your time today and your thoughts about this period in American story. How can people become engaged with the museum?
We absolutely welcome you to visit our website at www.sitinmovement.org. And also for those who are interested in contacting the museum, of course, our number is 336-274-9199. And if you wish to email us, please email us directly at info@sitinmovement.org.